There are certain situations where your gut instinct screams at you so loud, it's almost physical. It's that primal voice in the back of your head telling you that something is wrong, that you are being hunted. Whether you are stranded on a pitch-black country road miles from civilization, or trapped in the backseat of a stranger's car in the middle of the city, that feeling is the same. It's the feeling of being prey. And unfortunately, the two stories I'm going to share with you today are proof that sometimes, that voice is the only thing keeping you alive. I want to start this off by saying that I've always lived a pretty straight-edge lifestyle. I don't do drugs, I rarely drink, and I'm generally a very rational person. So, when I tell you what I saw and heard last New Year's Eve, please understand that this wasn't a hallucination. It wasn't a trick of the light. It was 100% real, and it's the reason I don't drive alone at night anymore. I live on the outskirts of a small, stereotypical southern town. You know the kind, where the paved roads eventually turn into gravel, and the streetlights disappear entirely. A few of my friends live even further out in the boondocks, accessible only by those winding, dark country backroads that feel like tunnels through the trees. One of my good friends, Darren, lives with his family in a nice neighborhood tucked away at the end of one of these long, isolated roads. Every year, his family throws a massive New Year's Eve party. It's always a good time, so when I got the invite, I was looking forward to it. The winter weather in the south is unpredictable, and after weeks of mild temperatures, a brutal cold front had snapped in just a few days prior. I remember the drive over vividly. The air was frigid, and my heater was blasting as I navigated those bumpy, unkempt roads. Usually, I try not to drive with my high beams on, I hate blinding other drivers, but that night was different. The darkness was absolute. There was no moon, no ambient light from the city, just a wall of black. The trees on either side of the road grew so dense they formed a canopy, blocking out the sky. I had to flip my brights on just to see the twists and turns ahead. There aren't any houses on this stretch of road. It's just miles of forest, except for this one lone, dilapidated shack about halfway to Darren's neighborhood. It looks abandoned, roof caved in, vines growing over the porch, though sometimes, in the past, I'd sworn I'd seen a faint light flickering inside. I was a few minutes past the main turnoff, driving down a rare straight section of the road, when my high beams caught something in the distance. Against the endless wall of brown trunks and black shadows, something white stood out. As I got closer, my stomach tightened. It was a person. Standing on the shoulder of the road, right at the edge of the ditch, was a woman. She wasn't moving. She wasn't hitchhiking. She was just standing there, rigid, with her back to the tree line. She was wearing a long white dress or gown, completely inappropriate for the freezing temperature. I slowed down instinctively, but I didn't stop. I kept my high beams on her. As I passed, I tried to get a look at her face, but the glare reflected off the white fabric, making it hard to see details. The terrifying part happened when I checked my rearview mirror. In the red glow of my taillights, I saw her move. She didn't step onto the road. She just slowly pivoted her entire body, turning to watch my car disappear into the dark. I shivered, terrified. Part of me wondered if I should have stopped. What if she needed help? But the other, louder part of me was grateful I kept driving. There was something unnatural about her stillness. I arrived at Darren's house around 8 p.m., shaking off the weird encounter. His house is situated in a large clearing surrounded by forest, just like every other property out there. I parked in the gravel circle alongside a dozen other cars and went inside. The party was great, food, music, the countdown. We watched the ball drop in New York, then celebrated our own midnight. By about 1 a.m., people started clearing out. I stayed behind to help clean up, stacking plates and bagging trash. By the time I walked out to my car, I was the only guest left. I got in, started the engine, and immediately, a warning light popped up on my dashboard. Low tire pressure. My car is an older model, so it doesn't tell me which tire is low or what the PSI is, it just gives me the idiot light. I sighed, gripping the steering wheel. I tried to rationalize it. The temperature had dropped significantly tonight, cold air compresses, so maybe my tires were just reacting to the weather. I sat there for a moment, debating my options. I could go back inside, but I didn't want to bother Darren's family when they were heading to bed. Or, I could take the alternate route home, a paved highway, but that would add 20 minutes to my drive, and the thought of drunk drivers on New Year's Eve scared me more than a low tire. I'll just risk it, I whispered to myself. It's probably nothing. I put the car in drive and headed back down the long, dark road I came in on. I realized my mistake almost immediately. Not even 5 minutes into the drive, the car started to handle poorly. It felt sluggish, wobbling slightly. Then came the sound. Scrape, scrape, scrape. It was the unmistakable sound of a rim grinding into the pavement. My car lurched, and I had no choice but to pull over. Shit, I muttered, hitting the steering wheel. The car came to a halt in the dead center of the road. Silence rushed back in the moment the engine cut out. The headlights turned off automatically, plunging me into total darkness. I knew I shouldn't get out. Every horror movie logic told me to stay inside. But I had to see how bad it was. I grabbed my phone, turned on the flashlight, and stepped out into the freezing air. I walked to the front left tire. Flat. Completely shredded. I walked to the back left. Shredded. I checked the other side. All 4 tires were destroyed. This wasn't a puncture from a rock. The rubber hung in ribbons. Huge gashes tore through the sidewalls, as if they had been ripped apart by a massive claw or a heavy blade. A cold sweat broke out on the back of my neck. This was deliberate. Someone had done this while I was inside the house. I stood there, phone in hand, the weak beam of light cutting through the mist. I was miles from anywhere. No cell service. Just trees, darkness, and the cold. Suddenly, the wind died down. The rustling branches stopped. Even the distant sounds of winter wildlife vanished. The silence was heavy, oppressive. It felt like the woods themselves were holding their breath. Snap. The sound came from the tree lean, maybe 20 feet away. I froze. I killed the light on my phone instantly, plunging myself into blackness. I crouched by the side of the car, heart hammering against my ribs. Rustle, crunch. Leaves were shifting on the forest floor. It wasn't the erratic scurrying of a squirrel or a deer. It was the slow, rhythmic step of something heavy. Something stalking. And then, a voice drifted out of the dark. I see you. The air left my lungs. The voice was soft, female, and terrifyingly calm. It wasn't shouted, it was whispered, almost playful, coming from the trees just 15 feet to my right. Can you see me? The voice was closer now. Panic took over. My fight or flight response kicked in, and my brain screamed run. But I was disoriented in the pitch black. I had to see. I fumbled with my phone and turned the flashlight back on, aiming it directly at the voice. Standing right at the edge of the tree lean was the woman in white. Now that I was closer, the horror of it hit me like a physical blow. Her gown was filthy, stained with mud and dark, rusty patches that looked like old blood. She was skeletal, skinny as a rail, with disheveled gray hair hanging down to her elbows. But her face. God, her face. It looked like half of her jaw was missing. The skin was torn away, revealing teeth and bone in a permanent, grotesque grin. Despite the injury, her eyes were wide and locked onto mine. She took a step toward me. I didn't wait. I spun around and sprinted back down the road toward Darren's house. I didn't care about the car. I didn't care about the cold. I just ran. Behind me, I heard the heavy crunch of boots hitting the pavement. She was chasing me. Come back, she shrieked, her voice gargled and wet. I pushed myself harder than I ever have in my life. The adrenaline masked the burning in my lungs. I could hear her gaining on me, the slap of her feet getting louder, but then, slowly, the sounds faded. I didn't look back to check. I burst into Darren's driveway, ran up the porch steps, and pounded on the door until my knuckles bruised. Darren's mom answered, terrified by the noise. I practically fell inside, gasping for air, babbling about the woman and the tires. Darren and his dad came running downstairs. They locked the doors, armed themselves, and called the police on the landline. They let me stay in the guest bedroom that night. The police promised to patrol the road, but I wasn't going anywhere. I eventually drifted into a restless sleep, but it didn't last. I woke up with a jolt. The room was dark. The red numbers on the digital clock read 3:14 a.m. Tap. 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 It was coming from the window. The second-story window. I pulled the covers up to my nose, paralyzed. I knew there were no trees close enough to that window to cause a scratching sound. Then, muffled by the glass, came the voice. "I see you." She had followed me. She had walked all the way back to the house, climbed the trellis or the siding, and was staring at me through the glass. I didn't look. I squeezed my eyes shut and prayed for the sun to rise. The next morning, she was gone. When the police arrived, we went outside. In the yard, directly beneath the guest room window, Darren's dad found a large, rusted hunting knife half buried in the mud. It didn't belong to them. The police took my statement and went to check the abandoned shack I had passed. They found evidence of squatting, old clothes, animal bones, gutted wildlife sprawled around the woods, but the woman was never found. The scariest question still haunts me. If she was missing half her face, how was she able to speak so clearly? And how did she know exactly which room I was in? I still go to Darren's New Year's party, but now we carpool. And we never, ever take the back roads. That story taught me to fear the woods. But sometimes, the city can be just as isolating. When I was 26, I took a solo trip to San Diego. I stayed with a friend for a few days and booked a late flight back home to save some money. My flight landed just around midnight. By the time I grabbed my luggage and got to the pickup curb, it was nearly 12:30 a.m. The rideshare app prices were surging like crazy, so when I saw a line of taxis, I figured I'd just do it the old-fashioned way. I waved down a yellow minivan taxi. The driver was a middle-aged man, maybe 45. He seemed normal enough at first. He offered to put my bag in the trunk, but I'm paranoid about my luggage, so I told him I'd keep it with me. I slid into the back seat, placing my bag on the seat next to me, diagonally across from him. We pulled out of the airport and got on the highway. My apartment was about a 30-minute drive, and at this hour, the roads were empty. About 5 minutes into the ride, I noticed him watching me. Every time I looked at the rearview mirror, his eyes were there, fixed on me. Not watching the road, watching me. "Where are you coming from?" he asked. "San Diego," I said, keeping it short. "Very nice," he murmured. "Is your friend as pretty as you?" I forced a polite, awkward laugh. "Excuse me? What is a pretty girl like you doing traveling all by yourself?" My hackles went up. "I'm not alone," I lied. "I was visiting friends. And I'm going home to my boyfriend." He smirked at me in the mirror. "Flying by yourself is traveling by yourself, isn't it?" I put my headphones in, making a show of it. I didn't turn any music on, though. I needed to hear him. The questions didn't stop, even with the headphones in. He kept mumbling, asking things like, "Does your boyfriend know you're in my car?" and "What's his name?" It felt like an interrogation. I texted my brother, the only family member awake at 1 a.m., and sent him my location. "If anything happens, call the police," I wrote. I looked out the window. We were approaching my exit. I sat up, ready to guide him, even though he had the GPS on. "This is the exit," I said. He didn't slow down. He stayed in the left lane, foot heavy on the gas. "Sir, that was my exit," I said louder. He didn't even blink. "Sorry," he muttered, no emotion in his voice. "I'll get the next one." I leaned forward, trying to see his phone screen mounted on the dash. It was angled away from me. I couldn't tell if he was even following a map anymore. The next exit was a mile away. I gripped the door handle. "You need to get off here," I commanded, trying to sound tougher than I felt. He glared at me in the mirror, a look of pure annoyance, and jerked the wheel to the right, taking the exit ramp way too fast. We were on surface streets now. My neighborhood was close. We hit a red light at a deserted intersection. I looked in the mirror again. He was staring. His eyes were wide, unblinking, menacing. The light turned green. He didn't move. He just kept staring at me. "The light is green," I stammered. He slowly pressed the gas. My phone buzzed. It was my brother. "Get out of the car. Now." We hit another red light. This one was right next to a large, empty parking lot. In the distance, parked under a street lamp, I saw the silhouette of a police cruiser. I didn't think. I just reacted. I grabbed my bag, unlatched the sliding door, and shoved it open. "Hey! What are you doing?" the driver screamed. He slammed his hand on the dashboard button to close the automatic door. The motor whirred, trying to pull the door shut on me. I jammed my shoulder against it, forcing it back, and leaped out onto the pavement. I didn't look back. I sprinted toward the police car across the parking lot. Behind me, I heard the van's tires screech. I expected him to get out and chase me, demanding his fare. But when I turned my head, the yellow van was speeding away, running the red light and disappearing into the night. I reached the police car, breathless and shaking. The officer rolled down his window, startled to see a terrified woman with luggage running at him at 1 a.m. I explained everything, the creepy questions, the missed exit, the staring. He let me sit in the back of the cruiser and drove me the last 5 minutes to my apartment. I felt safe when I got inside. I double-locked the door, brushed my teeth, and collapsed into bed, exhausted. But the night wasn't over. Just as I was drifting off, I heard it. Knock. 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 At my front door. My heart stopped. I lived in a secured building, but the front door opened directly to the outside breezeway. Knock. 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 "Hello?" a muffled voice called out. It sounded like him. I lay in bed, barely breathing. I didn't move. I didn't call out. After 10 agonizing minutes, the knocking stopped. The next morning, I went to work, trying to rationalize it. Maybe it was a neighbor. Maybe I imagined it. Around noon, I got a call from my neighbor, George. "Hey," George said. "Your dad stopped by earlier." I froze. My dad? My dad is at work 2 hours away." "Oh," George said, sounding confused. "Well, there was a guy here around 10 a.m. Said he was your dad and needed to drop something off inside your apartment. He was trying to open your door, peering through the windows." "What did he look like?" I asked, feeling sick. "Middle-aged. Kinda heavy-set. Driving a minivan." The driver hadn't just disappeared. He had memorized my drop-off address. He had come back. I left work immediately. I called my real dad, told him everything, and he told me to pack a bag and come stay with them for a week. I agreed. I got back to my apartment around 9 p.m. to pack. I felt sick being there. The air in the apartment felt heavy, wrong. Every shadow looked like a person. I was throwing clothes into a duffel bag in my bedroom when I heard it. Creak. It came from the living room. I froze. I knew that sound. It was the loose floorboard in the hallway. The only way it made noise was if someone stepped on it. I wasn't alone. I grabbed my car keys and my pepper spray, my hands shaking violently. I tiptoed toward the bedroom door, intending to bolt for the front entrance. But as I reached the doorway, a shadow stretched across the hallway floor. From around the corner, a man stepped into view. It was him. The taxi driver. He was standing inside my apartment. He smiled, raising his hands in a mock gesture of surrender. "I wasn't gonna hurt you," he whispered. I screamed. I didn't think, I just ran. I shoved past him, feeling his hand graze my arm, and bolted out the front door. I pounded on George's door, screaming for help. George and his wife pulled me inside their unit and locked the door. We called 911. By the time the police arrived and swept my apartment, the driver was gone. The back sliding door was wide open. He had been hiding in the spare room the whole time I was packing. I never found out how he got in, or what he planned to do. The police couldn't track the taxi, I hadn't gotten a number. And there was no record of the ride since I hailed it from the curb. I moved out the next week. I have a taser on my nightstand now, and cameras on every door. But sometimes, when I'm lying in bed at night, I still hear that whisper. "I wasn't gonna hurt you." But the knife they found in his pocket after he was arrested a month later for attacking another woman, suggested otherwise. So, the next time you're driving down a dark road, or getting into a car with a stranger, trust your gut. If something feels wrong, it probably is. And remember, just because you made it home, doesn't mean you're safe. That's all for today. If you have a scary story you'd like to share, check the description below. Stay safe, and I'll see you in the next one.
Think you're brave enough to handle what comes next? Prove it. Hit subscribe to Nightmare right now. Let's see how long you last.